3, 2, 1, action.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Jeffrey Morgan, Vice President of the Finance Committee, filling in for the introduction of Noreen. So with that being said, as I go through the agenda, I'm down to, and you guys help me make sure I'm doing this the right way. We have everybody present. Do we need to do a roll call with the board members?
Yes, sir, we do.
Okay. If you don't mind, let's do a roll call. I see that now.
Okay. Lori, you're muted.
It's still muted.
Yeah, Lori, you're still muted.
You're still muted.
Now can you hear me?
We got you.
Okay, my apologies on that. Thank you. Chairperson Scott? Vice Chair Morgan?
Here.
President Galbraith?
Present.
Board Member Cullen?
Present.
Board Member Coleman?
She's missing today.
Yes, yes. I don't think she's going to make it either, right?
No, probably not.
Yeah, daughter was having surgery, so. Okay, so we're all good? Can I move on?
Yes, sir.
So item C, approve prioritized agenda. I approve the agenda.
We'll take a roll call for the prioritized agenda as well, Vice Chair.
I'm sorry?
We'll take a roll call vote for the prioritized agenda approval as well.
Okay, that was just a joke, Jane. All right. Let's take roll call.
Okay, Chairperson Scott? Vice Chair Morgan?
Here.
Just say approve.
Approve, I'm sorry.
Or yes.
Well, don't you need a motion to approve the agenda?
Yeah, we should have a motion.
We should have a motion in a second, so I'm not sure what you guys are doing.
I think we do. I'll have somebody else make it.
I'll make a motion to approve the prioritized agenda.
I'll second the motion.
All right.
After Board Member Claxton Cullen.
You know, it's President Galbraith for the motion. Okay, and then Lori can go ahead and now she can take the
roll call.
Okay.
Approve.
Okay, Chairperson Scott? Vice Chair Morgan?
Yes.
President Galbraith?
yes.
Board Member Cullen?
Yes.
And Board Member Coleman? Thank you.
Are we good?
You can say the agenda is approved. 3, I would only have 3 here, so.
Yeah. Agenda's approved by 3 present board members. All right, we'll go to line item D. Discuss budget transfer for purchase of Chromebooks and temperature scanner tablets. And I think our presenter is Mike Baker. I thought I saw him on.
He is.
Yes.
Okay.
Could I just say one thing? Mike's having trouble with his unit. Noreen says she's having I just talked with her on the phone. She said she'll try to be back in a minute. Apparently there is an internet outage in this area. So just wanted to let you know that. And she said she'll try to be on as quickly as possible.
I'm on my cell phone.
There
So
she
I
is.
apologize, guys. Jeff, do you mind just running this meeting? Because in case I get lost, I don't want to waste people's time.
Noreen, yes, since we're on like the item before the last item, I think I'll continue on.
Thank you, sir.
If you'd have been about 2 minutes earlier, I'll let you take over. But since after Mike is done, we're pretty much done. So I'll take over.
Okay. And just for the record, Noreen, if you're really having a lot of issues, you could come back for this one meeting here. Because as you can see, we've got finance committee people here in the conference room. So, but my apologies. Morgan, I'll turn it back to you.
Hold on a sec, Lauren. Now that Noreen's on, do we need to take another roll call vote, or are we okay to proceed on?
I think we should just note in the minutes that when she arrived.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Okay, Mike, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Mr. Vice Chair, Finance Committee members, Dr. Cleveland. So this evening, we are requesting that the Finance Committee review a request for two different types of expenditures. The first expenditure in the amount of approximately $365,000 for the purchase of Chromebooks in order to accomplish distance learning because of the COVID-19. The second purchase in the amount of approximately $165,000 for these tablet scanners in order to provide for safety and security at our schools. And so what we will be doing over the next hour is I'll turn it over to Terry Meyer in order to provide information on exactly what would be purchased or how many of those Chromebooks would be purchased and where they would be deployed and why we're asking for that. And then secondly, I'll turn it over to Sal Maniaci, and he will describe the particular device that we are asking the Finance Committee, and then later on this evening, the school board to actually approve the budget transfer. And so the first question is, where is this money coming from? The funds currently reside in unrestricted cash, or what we refer to as our reserve account. Due to the circumstances and the nature that we're experiencing, we feel that we need to make these purchases in order to situate us for the next school year. So the first amount, $365,000 for IT, for Chromebooks, and the second amount for $165,000 for these tablets. So at this time, I would like to turn it over to Terry Meyer. I know I saw her up there somewhere. Terry, would you give a description of what those funds would actually procure?
Sure. So we have approximately 1,435 5-year-old Chromebooks. So these are the Asus C202s, the first year we bought them for the pilot group. So we had a pilot group who started off with Chromebooks, a smaller purchase when we first received the bond money to purchase Chromebooks. And so that set is 1,435. And the cost of the Chromebook is $209. And then we have to buy a Google management piece for all of them at $25. So the cost of those Chromebooks is $234 each. And so that total is $335K approximately. And then we need about 120 additional Chromebooks. And this is to cover, we have 2 schools, Enchanted Hills and just went blank, so sorry, Colinas, who didn't quite have enough for their kindergarten and first grade classrooms, because originally we weren't going to go 1-to-1 in elementary. So they were supposed to have 8 Chromebooks per classroom, but that's pretty good. We have to buy about 120 more Chromebooks to make sure that we are 1-to-1 pre-K through 12. So we talked about this as if we replace those older Asus models, we would use those ASUS, because by the way, they're still going strong and they work. We would use those Chromebooks for the preschool kids. So we will refurbish them and use them for the preschool kids if we have to go one-to-one, or if we're completely virtual pre-K through 12. So that's the money.
And I would like to add this, in regard to purchasing Chromebooks in particular and other technology that is assisting school districts throughout the country with distance learning. The difficulty is actually acquiring the devices. And so fortunately, Paul Romero who actually identified a source. So we will, this won't just be a budget transfer, but Paul got the information that these Chromebooks are actually sitting in the warehouse. So we will actually get them before the start of school. And that is one of the reasons why we're bringing this item to you kind of hastily, because we all more or less stumbled upon this acquisition. So before we move on, I just would like to stand for questions about the Chromebook purchase.
It doesn't sound like we have a choice.
Well, most of this was presented, I think last week, if I'm not mistaken. A lot of this information was presented last week. It sounds like we just need to move the date up on making a decision, and that day happens to be today.
Yeah, IT was looking at purchasing a lot more Chromebooks, and like I said, Paul just happened to more or less, he got information that there was actually Chromebooks available, and so we wanted to we were like, okay, let's go ahead and make this purchase because we could actually get these things.
Hey, Mike, what was that? I know last week they talked about a lease option as well. Was that an option on the table for this as well during the time?
We're at this time, we still want to vet that lease purchase. At this time, we are requesting an outright purchase of these items.
Okay.
This is Doreen. I move that we make the purchase.
I still had questions.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just afraid I asked, do any board members have questions? So, Catherine, go ahead.
Yes, this is board member Catherine Cullen. So this is, the 1,434, or excuse me, 35 is part of the refresh, basically what was presented last week.
Yes, ma'am. And
so Mike, I saw that they had requested that budget item when you guys were putting on the budget, putting together the budget. It was declined. So it was in the decline folder, what I saw in the budget. Is that correct?
What we were going to do is we were going to move that item to next fiscal year. And so what we're doing is, because these items are available now, is we're essentially now requesting that we actually make the purchase now instead of later.
Okay. All right.
There's an increase in the amount of Chromebooks. The supply and the demand are really high right now. A lot of our vendors do not have the supply on hand. This particular vendor has some in the warehouse that could get them to us this week. He said if we get to him, we can ship them quickly. So the idea is to get them inventory ready to go August, whenever we go back to school. So the sooner we can get them, the better, because it does take us some time to unpack them, inventory them, get them in the system, get them ready for kids. And so that's why we're requesting them early. It does take us a little while to get it done, and they're hard to find. There's not a lot of vendors that have the model that we use. This in particular, he had an order and they canceled it, so he has them in his warehouse. So that's the urgency of this particular amount.
Okay, because I know when I asked to put this on finance, I was a little worried that you guys put this in there just with one item, just because I asked to go in there. I'm getting a lot of feedback, somebody that I'm new. So I'll just go ahead, I'm fine with questions. I can't hear, so with everybody off, having their mics on.
Amanda, do you have anything?
I don't. It sounds good. Thank you.
Noreen? I guess you can't hear me, huh?
Yeah, she just muted.
I'm muted. I'm back. I don't have any questions. I thought we should take the advice of those who have given us the advice and vote yes. So I made a motion.
Do we make the motion and hear this all goes into
This is
our
part of the
board meeting, right?
for the board meeting, correct, Mike? This is Catherine Cohen. This is part of the bar for the board meeting coming up. We're not voting on this now.
Oh, I thought
Correct.
the finance committee had to approve it.
Yeah, there's an action. We have to approve this.
So we're approving it in finance to go into the board meeting, I believe.
That's correct.
Yeah.
No, actually, we're just providing, the information to the finance committee. If there are issues with the finance committee, then if you would bring that to our attention, but the actual budget transfer will go to the school board for the addition, for the actual approval.
Yeah, it shows as a bar in the board meeting. Right now, it just shows item D as a discussion.
Okay, that sounds good.
Sure.
I see that Wynn's on. I don't know. We might want to put that into the notes that Wynn Coleman arrived at about 4:45.
Okay. Mike, are you good? Everybody good with that? We can move on?
Maybe we should check to see if Board Member Coleman has any questions.
Yeah. When do you have any? I don't know if she had a chance to listen in. When do you have any questions about the overview of purchasing or transfer the Chromebook?
No, well, I mean, I'm sure that there are questions that have been asked. I don't know if real quickly, do you have any idea kind of where the extra money is coming from? Or well, here's, I guess, how do we know what we're budgeting really addresses the need that the survey indicated? How did we, I guess I'm wondering how we chose that amount. And I know the survey was sent out.
So the numbers that are in there to be replaced, they're part of the inventory. So it's an inventory list. It's not a survey. So it's basically what we've ordered over the years. And so the amount we're replacing happens to be the 5-year-old ASUS C202s. So that very first year that we bought them for the pilot team, that group of Chromebooks needs to be replaced because they're older. So it's their time. Yeah.
Okay.
And then the remaining amount came from inventory as well. It took how many Chromebooks are in the school, how many kids do you have, how many do you still need? So it's just an inventory, figuring out how many they needed.
Okay, and then I do have one other question. I'm just curious now. How are we as far as being unified with the manufacturer of the Chromebooks? And I know sometimes it's hard when you have different platforms and different. So are we setting ourselves up so we'll minimize any problems?
Yes. So right now we only have 2 versions of Chromebooks. We have ASUS model and we have HP model, and we switched to HP this last year. And so we have a parts closet for both. We can maintain both models. And Chrome is a Chrome OS, so it's not really an operating system. It's all online. So they work the same. So if there isn't any cross-platform things that we need to worry about, so they
Okay.
just the parts basically, but we have parts for both models. So
Okay.
we should be okay.
Okay. Thank you. And I apologize for coming in late.
That's fine.
No, it's okay.
Okay, and actually, Mr. Chairman, this is Catherine Cullen again. Mike, so if we're taking it out of our cash reserves, refresh our memories. How much is in our cash reserve for the unrestricted cash?
Jane, can you put that budget transfer form back on, please?
Thank you. Maybe here, let me log in here. Oh, it's not on that one.
I don't.
It's.
Are you seeing it?
That's just the report. Is it in our bar? I can go into the bar.
You're asking for the current balance, is that correct?
Right. If you can remind the board what's in our an unrestricted cash reserve accounts.
Yeah, I don't remember that number off the top of my head, but I know Arlene is on. Arlene, can you pull that number, please?
Because my question is, are we going to have to be dipping into this some more with all the other figures that we're seeing in the next board meeting as well?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite understand what you're saying.
I know there's some, I think there's some mics on. So with the cash reserve, are you seeing that we're going to have to be dipping into this a bit with some of the other areas that we're seeing? Because we're seeing a lot of numbers come through for different areas that's going to need money when we start back up in school. So I'm just wondering how much we're going to have to be dipping into those reserves.
Well, we will be, the legislature is going to be meeting
Thursday.
And so we will be essentially realigning our budget in order to meet the legislative demands. And then as far as the task force recommendations, we will likely include some of those recommendations in that new budget. And that will be presented to the Finance Committee first, and then the school board second. So we'll outline all of those future expenditures because of COVID-19.
Because how much is I see on there, Arlene? I'm sorry. Do you know what
President Cullen? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. After those two budget transfers, in our 1,000, which is instructional cash reserves, there are a little over 800,000. And in our 2,000 function, cash reserves is 2.2 million.
Okay.
That is after these transfers.
After. Okay. Thank you, Arlene.
You're welcome.
Hey, Mike, I know we talked about the dollar amount on the other piece was the scanner. Did you talk about address the temperature scanner tablets? Was that all in the same thing as well?
No, so once we answer all the questions on the Chromebook purchase, then we will move to the second part, and that will be the scanners.
All right. Do anyone else have any questions on the Chromebooks? Hearts and minds are clear? Okay, Mike?
Okay, so I will turn it over to Executive Director of Safety and Security, Sal Maniaci, and he will give a quick overview, and then he will turn it over. And we actually have a demonstration because this is such a new device for our our district, we thought a demonstration would be appropriate. Go ahead, Sal.
Good evening, Mr. Vice Chair and members of the Finance Committee and Dr. Cleveland. Before I get started on my presentation, I would like to turn it over to Mr. David Dworsky from Team First Technologies. He is the provider of the one-screen GoSafe tablet. And rather than me try to give you the technicalities of this piece of equipment, I'd like to have Mr. Dworsky give you the information and let's give you a brief demonstration on how this device works. And then I'll get into the logistics of it and how it applies to what we're trying to accomplish for next year. Mr. Dworsky.
Thank you, Sal. Good afternoon, everybody. So, about 2 months ago, we found out that being able to take temperatures was kind of monotonous, and pointing devices at people, touching their foreheads, having to clean things all the time. So we wanted to come up with a piece of technology that we're all used to. We all look at tablets all the time. We look into them. We look in cameras. So that's basically what we did with the GoSafe, and we put the technology together. So pretty easily out of the box, the GoSafe comes, and you're going to look into a little silhouette here.
Normal temperature.
And I have a normal temperature. And if I can also set it up.
Please wear a mask.
I don't know if you heard that, but it tells me to wear a mask if I'm not wearing a mask. So
Normal temperature.
I can make it happy. I'll put my mask on. And again, it's got top of the line industry facial recognition. So it really does a great job understanding the facial, what the face looks like and what different pieces on the face and how you cover your face. It can differentiate between that. So now.
Normal temperature.
And,
normal temperature.
And it's letting me go now.
Normal temperature.
It does a lot more than just take temperatures. So what we wanted it to do was work with your safety people and the different types of safety equipment they put into place, like door openers and scanners. It's got a scanner on it if you want to scan a card into it too. But the great thing about this now is when you're using this, you can actually use it to talk to somebody because it has remote management. So it doesn't matter how many you've got, the remote management allows you to manage these units from any computer and anybody you sign up to be able to administer the solution. So they can see, it holds up to 30,000 faces, okay? Which is a nice feature, and it works two ways. It works standalone. Let's say you don't have internet running. Internet went down. Well, you know our internet is not perfect. It will still work standalone, take all the information in. It allows you to set up with the management system. It will work with your attendance solution that you have for your students. So with a simple API connection, it's just software that tells this to talk to your attendance software. It will actually take attendance too if you'd like it to take attendance. And let's say little Johnny comes in, and Johnny comes in with a temperature. Now it will, and based on your policies and procedures that you'll put together, you can at least allow this. Let's say Johnny comes in the 2 days from now. You can set it in here where Johnny can't come in for 14 days. And it will constantly let you know that Johnny's coming in with a temperature and Johnny's here. Why is Johnny coming here? And you can, whatever you need to do to stop that from happening. And that goes again for any student or any administrator, anybody you've got. The whole idea behind this, and you guys get it, is giving the rest of the people that are coming back to school a sense of safety that you know, okay, this is not going to tell you that someone is sick. It's just going to tell you that they've got a heightened temperature, okay? So the good news with that is you can put your policies and procedures in place that allow you to pull that student, pull that faculty member out right away and deal with the problem and find out, do they really have a temperature? Maybe you have a second way of checking that that will give you a sense of confidence that you at least now know someone that registered at a higher temperature and you can pull them out.
And then also, just to let you know, we met with Mr. Gorski and his partner last week with Mr. Paul Romero from IT and Dr. Cleveland, and they were giving us a demonstration as well. And this device has been vetted through the IT department as far as being able to interface with our current systems. As Mr. Dworsky explained, it's a very robust piece of equipment. It has a lot of technology, and I believe that one of the things that I was looking for when we were vetting some of these devices was, does this product give us something that will be valuable to the district after COVID-19? And I believe it does. It's a sizable investment. It's portable, so as we are moving into different phases of reopening schools, and we start to have events such as athletic events or assemblies, these are portable, and we can move them to different locations and have that second screening, per se, of individuals coming into gathering areas, so that we're really being, we're taking proper precautions, we're exercising our due diligence, and make sure that folks coming in are screened properly. And like Mr. Dorsey said, we will develop processes and practices that will take us to that level to make sure that we're doing it correctly.
You're being proactive, and that's one thing that people look at. Your facilities. If people are comfortable coming into your facilities, they're going to come to your facilities. And if you're comfortable because you know the people in your facilities aren't running around potentially being sick, everybody else is comfortable too.
So I will try to make this short and sweet. The total amount that we're requesting for the purchase of 71 tablets, 71 floor stands, the setup fee and the shipping comes out to approximately $162,000. What we did is with information that we've gotten from Ms. Dworsky and myself and Paul Romero, we kind of put together a formula to say, okay, how many of these do we need per school? And I came up with a deployment number of like 71, and that's satisfying all of our schools, district office, the warehouse, the transportation depot. Just like I said, make sure we had all our bases covered, so that we can, like I said, adequately protect our students and our staff members. So, any questions for myself and Mrs. Dworsky?
Could I add just a couple of things to that for the board to think about? One of the things that is attractive to me about this system is that no one has to stand in front of a student's face and scan their temperature. And so if we are, and we're not sure we will be, but if we are required to take everybody's temperature when they come into the building, this is quicker. No one has to stand in front of students and do it. It's keeping a record of it. And so it moves the numbers of students into the building much faster. One of the concerns we have is how we're going to get everybody in quickly every day. One of the other things I thought was kind of interesting with regards to that is that the temperature is HIPAA protected. And so it's not going to be where you can say, oh, this one's 102, please step aside. But that will not be done publicly. And so that information would be kept, but the school nurse would have access to it immediately. But the biggest issue, I think, one of the challenges we're going to have is if we are required to take every child's temperature every day. One of the things that might be a possibility, it's just something to think about, would be to scan those kids who are bus riders before they get onto the bus. And if they were then cleared, they could enter another way into the building and not have to be screened again. So say at a high school, where you have 2,600 students, and you have 1,300 that ride the bus, they would be scanned at the bus stop, and the others would be scanned at the school when they come in. But it would greatly reduce the waiting time for students to get into the building. It also would keep, as is saying, people, adults could not go into the building if they had not been scanned. So, however, one of the things we are hearing from the state is, except for emergency situations, they're recommending we keep most everybody who doesn't need to be in the building out of the building. But there are times you're going to have to bring people in, for emergencies, something wrong with the electrical system or something wrong with, who knows what. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thought is, it does give you a way to scan people. There are some people who simply won't let another person touch them. So and some won't even let you get within 3 feet of them. You could scan someone without being invasive, without getting in their face, without them having, to feel like that they've got to be right in front of you. And it's a reasonable thing because they're thinking, well, maybe, you might infect me rather than the other way around. And then the comment about it was, long-term, it will scan faces if we want that. It could certainly stop people coming into the building that we didn't want to be there. But eventually, this is probably going to be the wave of attendance. And one of the things they're talking about is, the counts on school buses and all of that. That would all be done. You would already have those numbers in place. So, it has some short-term safety issues that trying to address, but it has some long-term applications as well. And so I appreciated being invited into the demonstration. I saw a lot of possibilities for it. But for me, it's the time getting kids screened, getting them in the building, that in the short term seems to be the most urgent, and not asking our health assistant or other people to stand in front of how many kids go through that door and scan the temperature. You raise their risk of being infected as well.
Thank you, Dr. Cleveland. Board members, do we have questions?
I have a question if I can go real quick. So what would the day look like? I think that this sounds good, and it sounds, less worrisome than trying to take everyone's temperature with, something in your hand. But what would the day look like for a Rio Rancho High School or a Cleveland High School student as they come in? So they're coming in from the parking lots and different locations. How are you going to have this set up, just to kind of give me a kind of a visual how this is going to be set up for as they come in, and how do we keep them from getting broken if we kind of have them sitting outside and we're moving them all the time?
So I had predicted that we would put 6 tablets at each high school. And so the visual that I would give you is that we would designate entry points that would have rapid response teams at each point that would be monitoring the flow coming into the school. And as students and staff, like I said, we would have designated staff entry and then designated students entry. And like I said, each one of these points would be monitored. I think with 6 per school, I think we would have a relatively moderate flow of input. I don't think we would be delayed too terribly. And we would have folks coming in. Again, this device measures temperatures instantaneously. And then we would develop a protocol for when we do have that occasional student or staff member that does display a temperature, like a verification process to take place after that. But that's how it would happen. We would have designated entry points, and we would monitor that flow to make sure that every person coming in would be accounted for.
And then does this give us any additional security issues as far as, like we were saying, temperatures are HIPAA, we have to, so do we have to come up with any additional security things, even having face scans of everyone coming in, to cause us any sort of issues with those kind of things?
Well, and one of the things that's really great about this particular product is that it does have a facial recognition component to it. So that, again, I wanted something that would be valuable to the school, to the district after COVID-19. So from a security standpoint, let's say we have a student who's been expelled for committing a violent act on school property, but we could input that student's data into this device. And if he was trying to get in with a crowd of students, well, this device would pick him up and say, hey, access denied, or it would send a text message or email to our security staff. So there's a lot of different uses that it has on the security side. And the nice thing is too, working together with Paul Romero is that it does have the ability to interface with our systems that are already present, with access control, with surveillance. So, like I said, it's very robust. And I think that, once we implement it and we start working with it, just like our other systems, I mean, we have done so much with surveillance and access control, making those two systems work with each other over the last year. I mean, I've just, it really is astounding to me that we're able to do that. And there's even more to come. We're working, that's one of the things I wanted to get done this summer. And hopefully I still have time to do some of that, is expanding the capabilities of our systems. And I'd like to integrate this particular product with our current systems to make sure that we're getting the most for our money, that we're being good stewards of the tax dollar, and keeping our schools just as safe as we could possibly keep them.
Board Member Catherine, I see you. Go ahead.
Yeah, and you probably saw my face. I'm a little, this is what really makes me nervous, is the facial recognition on this. I mean, I have great security concerns. I think in New York, I just pulled up the civil rights is what is a concern for some of these students if we start doing the facial recognition, and they've been doing it in New York, looks like since January. And I think that there's some, I don't know, I doubt it's been in litigation, but that does concern me that we're now doing facial recognition on our students. And then we're maintaining those files within the up to 30,000. And I'm having to wonder if this is going to be going into litigation for having facial recognition software in school districts.
Could I ask a question real quickly? My understanding is you don't need the facial recognition to do the temperature, because when I did the scan, it didn't show my face or whatever. Is it, at least I shouldn't be saying it that way. I really don't know. Was there a face scan, and was that kept, or was it just the temperature that was kept?
Madam President, Dr. Cleveland, the facial recognition is a system that you would activate within the device. It isn't on all the time. It's something that we could either activate or deactivate. And I believe that, if we can get Lauren to comment on his view of the facial recognition component, that'd be great.
And also, we don't have any type of policy on this as a board, and that hasn't been discussed about us doing any type of facial recognition or saving any type of students. So before I would even feel comfortable proceeding on something that would do facial recognition, and of course I want Lauren to speak, but I do want to get some information before, because we have no policy on this. Sorry, that was for Catherine Cullen, since these are recorded.
Oh, yeah, we got you. Lauren, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, to be honest with you, I haven't looked at this for the facial recognition aspect of it. We do maintain photographs of students in our database now. But I think it would be a good idea to take a look at it for the civil rights issue.
Yeah, I mean, because if they're talking, he's saying that we could use this later for pensions and all that, then you're running people's faces through the system. So I'm thinking you're using high technology to get a temperature right now. And we haven't looked so far as any type of legality issues of this going further, because you can expand this and we're paying a bit of money for it. I'm just, at least for me, I feel more comfortable waiting until we explore all these avenues.
This is Noreen. Scott. I thought that we had name badges with people's picture on it. How is this different than that?
Because they could use the system to scan students, correct? Is that what you were saying, Sal? Is that you can use it for scanning kids that are suspended and all that, and using it when you're out at other events as well?
Yes, Madam President, Board Member Cullen, yes, it does have that capability, but I would like to reiterate the fact that we could actually turn that system off. So we can use this device for attendance and for temperature monitoring currently and not even delve into the facial recognition part till we have explored it legally and then developed some process and procedures to implement that portion of this device. So it's not activated immediately. It was something that we would have to enable. So we could certainly avoid any type of litigation problems until we researched it adequately and then developed the proper procedures to put it in place.
Okay.
One
Dr.
of the things, again, I hope the board will take into some consideration too. We can do the applications that the board approves and not do the others that the board doesn't approve. So I think we have that. The biggest, I want you to really think about what it's going to be like in August if we have to scan every child that comes into a building, how long it's going to take. And the ones that you held hand in front of somebody and you stand in front and you take the temperature, and multiply that by 2,600 kids at Cleveland High School. So if they don't require us to do the temperatures, that's going to be one thing. And we just don't know that yet. But if we don't move ahead, then our other options will be very time consuming. And so, I think that there's just a lot of things the board does need to weigh both sides. But one of the things I would have to see every day is we start so late because we can't get everybody in the building. And honestly, parents are not going to send their kids at 6:30 so we can scan their temperatures for a class that starts at 7:15. So I don't know what other options we have. We've been looking at various options, and there's really no really good option right now. But I will tell you, having observed this one, it's super fast. And the other is, as I said, you don't need anybody in front of you in your face taking your temperature. The adult that's watching it can be 5 feet away, and not be close at all to make sure that everybody goes through, whether that's our security or whatever. So just a couple things to take into consideration when you're making your decision.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Cleveland. Board Member Wynn, you have any comments, thoughts?
Yes, this is Board Member Coleman. Now, I have a question about how first of all, just kind of housekeeping. When it comes to us voting on this, is this a both or, both of them or nothing as far as what we approve in the meeting? Because that's on that bar, correct? Both of them?
Yeah, the bar's listed as both.
Yeah.
So how are we voting on that? I mean, because really it's unfortunate that the two different things are on one. And do we have the ability to separate those and vote on those?
Vice Chair, I would think that you could offer a substitute motion. I don't, that would pull one, or you could not approve one and approve the other. But getting to the civil litigation with facial recognition, at least the reading that I've done, is most of the issues have to do with facial recognition in regard to law enforcement purposes. And that has to do with facial recognition is not 100%. There are, and there have been mistakes with the facial recognition. And when you're talking about arresting somebody based on a device that is not 100%, that's why you have those issues in the law enforcement arena. If we were to use facial recognition, and certainly we would have to vet this, and we would have to get legal opinion on this, we would not be using the facial recognition for law enforcement purposes, rather strictly for administrative purposes. And so we believe that we have more latitude in using devices in order to ensure the safety of our students, specifically temperature taken. Also, as Zalmany actually spoke about, as far as not suspending students, but rather if students are suspended and they try to come back on campus, it would identify them. It would not be a law enforcement issue, rather it would be a school issue. So just to add to that.
Yeah, and I will say that I would feel comfortable having just some more concrete answers to make the decision on that. I believe that Lauren, there's some research that needs to be done, and the other thing too that I'm just wondering is if we're at the point where we're expecting that we'll have to take temperatures, we also don't know in a strong possibility that not all students will be coming all at the same time. So that number, the 20 or the 2,000 plus students, that might be staggered anyway. So just some things to think about.
Can I add something in, Vice President Morgan? Do you mind?
Sure, go ahead.
So this is President Galbraith. I do want to kind of add in as they're talking. I've been to a lot of doctors' offices just in the last couple of weeks as things are finally opening, and they do, they have one that doesn't touch foreheads. I will say that it makes me nervous using those in a school setting because they do take some time. They're not very accurate. And I watched with my kids today as they were going to the dentist office. Of course, we're one family, so it's not as big of a deal if something touches us accidentally even. But in a student situation, we wouldn't want that to accidentally hit our other students and be touching it, and then we don't have, the alcohol, then you're trying to clean them off. And so I do like this as an option. I think something to think about for as we go into vote would be, that separating these two options and also putting within the vote that for now we turn off that option for facial recognition, understanding, Henry, you want to mute for a second? But understanding, that that's an option that we have, but that we would turn that off for this. And so I just wanted to bring that up as a possibility as we go into vote for this tonight, that this does seem like a good, a fast way to get our students in. Even if you're talking half the student body, that's still a good amount of students coming in. It would be a fast way. I watched last year from across the street when they had a water main issue, students trying to all go in through one entrance and the backup that caused when there was, it was the fire issue at Rancho High School. And I do think this would be a nice way to get students through. And so that's just some thoughts for you guys. I know I'm rambling now, but some thoughts on as we go into the vote, ways that we could kind of change this to use the good of this, but make sure that, we have further discussion on the facial recognition for this point.
Okay. Thank
Can
you.
I ask Lauren a question? Lauren, do we have any responsibility to maintain this record, do you think? Or is it one thing we could use is every day for them to come through, but we don't maintain a record of it? What would you see this as a permanent kind of thing, or just at the end of those, as soon as we get everyone on through, we would not maintain that?
Mr. Chairman, Dr. Cleveland, I apologize. Are you asking me about facial recognition or the temperatures? What are we?
I'm really just talking about the temperatures. If they go through and we get everybody in the building, we've cleared everybody. Would we have to maintain that as a record? Or would we be able to simply not maintain it?
I think if we recorded it, we would have an obligation to maintain it as a record for a period of time.
Okay, thank you.
I think the CDC guidelines were something like, I want to say it was like 30 years. It was a really long time. I'd have to.
But they would be student records that would be protected. No one would be able to see them, right? Because it's HIPAA protected.
I don't know how the system works, but I would think that would be information that we would want to keep confidential.
Thank you.
Do we have any more questions?
All right, sorry, this is Catherine. Can you hear me?
I can. I just want to make sure I don't want to miss out on anybody. Go ahead, Kat.
Okay. Right. This is Catherine Cullen. So how hard is it to turn on and turn off the facial recognition? Is that done through a district office or is that done on each tablet? Who controls that?
It's done on, I'm sorry, this is Dave with Team First. It's done with management software that is HIPAA compliant and allows you to work with the unit remotely. So you don't have to go touch every unit. So you can go in there and manage the whole thing very easily.
Okay. Hey guys, I understand we have another meeting that we need to attend. We're getting close to the hour of that meeting. Do we have any other questions? Okay, good. The last item on the agenda here was advanced planning. Do we have a schedule for any upcoming meetings?
Not finance meeting, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Vice Chair, well, we will be coming to the Finance Committee very, very soon. It is our understanding that the legislature will meet this week. We assume that they will have a decision and likely within about a week or within 2 weeks for sure, we will come back to the Finance Committee for an amended budget. Don't know the exact date yet.
There is one
Okay.
other thing we will also know, hopefully by Friday, that will be useful to all of our planning. And that is that the state is deciding to do in terms of the start of the school year. And so with everything right now, whether it's Chromebooks or temperature or whatever, we are not far from the start of school. So anything that needs to be ordered is going to be hard to get even now by the start of the school year. And that's just going to be a challenge. So we're hoping to hear Friday when that date is. And we've heard 2 dates. And one is the 1st of August and the other is the 12th of August. So as soon as we know what that start date is, we will let you know. And if we need to, we will propose an adjustment in the school calendar. And that may also impact, obviously, as Mike Baker's saying, when we have to get that budget revision back to the state. And, we're going to be on, from here on, every single thing we've got to do is going to be fast tracked in order to be ready for the start of the school year.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mike Baker. Thank you, Dr. Cleveland. Guys, with that being said, if there are no more questions, no more concerns, this meeting.
Vice Chair, may I say something, please?
Please.
Sorry about this, but to get into the next meeting, you will need to get out of this link and go into it, go back and open the next meeting. I apologize. Thank you.
No, that's okay. Thank you. Okay, guys, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you. I'll see you in about 30 seconds.